Welcome back to our channel, where we dive into the deep end of Port Charles drama every single day. I am absolutely furious, and if you have been paying attention to the structural integrity of General Hospital over the last few years, you should be too. We need to talk about the Chad Duell interview with Michael Fairman, the Rory Gibson recast, and the sheer, unadulterated audacity of how the character of Michael Corinthos has been handled since early 2025. Let me say this clearly. What happened behind the scenes with this recast is a masterclass in how not to treat a legacy actor, and it has fundamentally fractured the emotional truth of every storyline Michael touches on the current canvas. And I am not just speaking as someone who watches the screen. I am speaking as someone who understands how soap storytelling is constructed, how narrative safety nets are built, and how showrunners are supposed to manage their most vital assets. Chad Duell did not just play Michael Corinthos. For over a decade, he anchored the character through brain trauma, prison sentences, mob wars, and endless family grief. He built the modern iteration of the Corinthos heir. So when he experienced severe burnout in 2024 and asked Frank Valentini for a break, the show did exactly what it was supposed to do. They wrote an exit. But they did not just write any exit. They wrote a highly specific, calculated exit that was designed to leave the door wide open. Let us dissect the anatomy of that early 2025 fire scene. When you are a scriptwriter and you are tasked with taking a major character off the canvas temporarily, you use physical trauma as a placeholder. You put them in a coma, you send them to a specialized facility, or, in this case, you trap them in a fire. But here is the critical detail that Duell himself just confirmed. They specifically did not burn Michael's face. Why? Because Duell explicitly told Valentini he was ready and willing to return. As a writer, you do not protect a character's face in a fire storyline unless you are preserving the actor's visual identity for a triumphant comeback. It is a fundamental rule of daytime television visual language. If you are going to recast, you burn the face, wrap it in bandages, and let the new actor emerge from the gauze months later. That is soap opera 101. But they did not do that. They preserved Chad Duell's face in the narrative, giving him a false sense of security, only to completely blindside him in May 2025 by bringing in Rory Gibson as the new Michael. Am I supposed to pretend that this makes sense? Am I supposed to just accept that a showrunner would look at an actor who gave 14 years of his life to a role, who communicated his need for a mental health break, who promised to return, and then just silently replace him without a single phone call? It is indefensible, it is lazy producing, and it is cruel. You do not treat the man who carried the emotional weight of the Quartermain and Corinthos legacies like a disposable extra. Because of this massive behind-the-scenes betrayal, the on-screen product has suffered immensely. Let us look at the current state of Michael Corinthos under Rory Gibson. Now, I want to be fair. I do not blame Rory Gibson for taking a job. He stepped into an impossible situation, wearing shoes that were molded to another man's feet. But the Michael we are watching right now in August 2026 is fundamentally disconnected from the Michael we knew. Gibson plays him with a rigid, almost clinical coldness. The deep, lingering vulnerability that Duell always managed to project, even when Michael was being ruthless, is completely gone. Look at what is happening right now at the Quartermain estate. Willow Kane has moved back in, and Michael is enforcing these incredibly strict, suffocating rules on her. He is acting like a dictator, playing entirely by his own rigid moral code, and it is driving his wife away. If Chad Duell were playing these scenes, we would see the desperation underneath the control. We would see a man terrified of losing his family, overcompensating because of the trauma he endured in that fire. But with Gibson, it just reads as hostile and arrogant. It makes Michael entirely unsympathetic, which in turn makes Willow's current reckless behavior feel entirely justified rather than tragic. And let us talk about Willow for a second, because her character is being dragged through the mud to serve this new version of Michael. Because Michael is being so alienated and controlling, Willow is spiraling. She is making terrible, reckless choices, and she is dragging her mother, Nina Reeves, and Jack Brennan right into the crossfire. Nina refuses to abandon her daughter no matter the cost, and Brennan is risking his own life and freedom to protect Nina from the fallout of Willow's mess. This entire domino effect, the danger Nina is in, the risks Brennan is taking, stems directly from the fact that Michael and Willow's marriage is structurally failing. And it is failing because the emotional chemistry that anchored it left the building when Chad Duell did. Then we have the absolute disaster of the Jacinda Bracken breakup. Michael recently kicked Jacinda out, leaving himself heartbroken and vulnerable. And who swoops in to pick up the pieces? Serena Baldwin, acting on the manipulative orders of her mother, Lucy Coe. Lucy sees an opportunity to exploit Michael's heartbreak, to steal his shares, and Serena is playing the sweet, comforting friend to perfection. But here's my problem as a storyteller. I do not feel Michael's heartbreak. Gibson is going through the motions of a betrayed man, but the historical weight is missing. When Duell's Michael got his heart broken, you felt the echoes of Abby, of Sasha, of every woman he ever lost. With Gibson, it just feels like a plot point moving from A to B. Serena's manipulation should feel like a devastating violation of a broken man, but instead, it just feels like standard corporate espionage. So now we arrive at the rumor that is currently setting the fandom on fire. The word on the street is that Chad Duell is returning to General Hospital to reclaim the role of Michael Corinthos, and it is going to cause a massive shockwave, and it absolutely should. But let me ask the writer's room this. How exactly do you plan to clean up this mess? You cannot just swap the actors back and pretend the last year and a half of Rory Gibson's rigid, alienating Michael never happened. If Duell walks back onto that set, he has to inherit the absolute disaster that Gibson's Michael has created. He has to inherit a wife in Willow who has been pushed to the brink of recklessness. He has to inherit a fractured relationship with Nina and Brennan. He has to inherit the fact that Serena Baldwin is currently sinking her claws into his shares. The narrative whiplash is going to be severe. If I were writing this, I would lean into the chaos. I would make it text. I would have Duell's Michael wake up from a secondary coma or return from a hidden facility, revealing that the Michael who has been terrorizing the Quartermaine estate for the last year was an imposter, a Cassadine plant, or a side effect of some deep psychological break. You have to explain the personality shift, or the audience will never forgive the insult to their intelligence. Think about the ripple effects this return will have on the rest of the canvas. Sonny Corinthos is currently trying to execute a highly dangerous exit from the criminal underworld with Jason Morgan. Sonny is participating in the auction for Jen Sidwell's assets, battling Valentine, Cassadine, and Drew Kane, all while trying to secure a safe future for his family. How does the sudden, shocking return of his true son alter that trajectory? Sonny's entire motivation is family protection. If he finds out that the Michael he has been dealing with was somehow compromised, or if the real Michael returns with the emotional scars of being abandoned by the show's narrative, Sonny's focus will completely shatter. And what about the sweet, innocent teenage romance blossoming between Scout Quartermaine and Rocco Falconeri? Drew is already poised to explode and forbid Scout from seeing Rocco simply because of Rocco's connection to Sonny. The Corinthos name is a lightning rod for trauma in Port Charles. If the real Michael Corinthos returns, bringing a tidal wave of unresolved family drama and media scrutiny back to the Quartermaine estate, Drew's paranoia is going to skyrocket. The collateral damage of Michael's return will touch every single family in this town. I am sorry, but this entire situation did not have to happen. If Frank Valentini and the GH brass had simply respected Chad Duell's request, honored the narrative safety net they built with the fire scene, and waited for their star to return, we would not be in this mess. We would not have had to endure a year of a recast that fundamentally misunderstood the character's core empathy. We would not be watching Willow's character assassination as she rebels against a husband who suddenly acts like a stranger. But here we are. The damage is done, and now the writers have to write their way out of a corner they painted themselves into out of sheer impatience and disrespect. I am thrilled at the prospect of Chad Duell returning because he is the only actor who can salvage the soul of Michael Corinthos. But I will not applaud the showrunners for fixing a mistake they maliciously made in the first place. They owe Duell an apology, they owe Rory Gibson an apology for using him as a pawn, and most importantly, they owe the audience a story that actually makes emotional sense. I will be watching every single frame of this potential return. I will be scrutinizing every line of dialogue to see if they actually